Okay, did y'all get a thing that said we are recording?
Want me to what?
Mute it. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate it. I know you guys have a million things on your plate, so we just appreciate you taking some time to visit with us. I have more donuts in here, so please, if you have not come by, please come get the donuts. But we're just going to go ahead and get started. This is really just around the core phonics data that we've collected. Over the past few months. And really, we're going to be focusing on the winter portion. The lovely superintendent priorities that we like to remember. And today, we're really just going to focus on that third circle, the using the data to make decisions. And that's really just kind of what we've been focusing on. I feel like a lot this year is just having data drive our decision making when it comes to learning. Our mission and vision, of course, provide every student with a foundation to love, learn, and lead. And our vision is empowering and engaging young thinkers. And I really think that as a whole, kindergarten does an amazing job with both the mission and the vision. So give yourselves a pat on the back for how good you guys are.
Good job, kindergarten.
And then lastly, the collective commitments. We focus on these every day and every time we meet. But today's really focusing on supporting each other and how we can help each other just help our students, help us help our students, and then just have them prepared for that continued success after they leave kindergarten and then eventually when they leave KES. And for the CCC information, we're going to be focusing a lot on the core phonics so that how do we know if the students learned it? So that common assessment and data collection that we've been doing so much this year. And then Allie and I really want to focus, especially on our next presentation, just giving us the tools and some fun things to do with the kids that can help those students that are struggling and need that reteaching and need that remediation, but also not forget the students that have it. We want to enrich and extend them. So we want to do kind of a twofold where we're looking at both sides so that everybody's getting something a little extra.
And so now we're going to kind of go over the data. So Melinda and Sherry, last time they kind of met with us, we were looking at the Amira data. So the next slide, you'll see just kind of what we went over last time. And again, this was taken from the fall and winter. So we could see our green, our yellow, and our red. So you can see that we are making progress. And then they also showed us how we could go into our classroom and kind of look at the kids and figure out those areas of needs. And we kind of all talked about how we noticed a lot of our students were struggling with those vowel sounds and creating CVC words and kind of steps to use to help them. And our kids will be taking the Amira again in May, as well as we'll be taking the core phonics data, all of the assessment part, the entire thing again in May. So Valerie and I really were going to focus on core data. So our next slide will be about that. So what is core phonics? I'm sure you guys are already aware, but just a reminder, we give this assessment 3 times a year. We've gone over the letters, sounds, short and long vowel sounds, and CVC words. And then again, we'll be testing it again in May 9th. We're going to cover all parts. So in winter, we did all parts, and we're going to do it again. This is what it looks like.
So yeah, this is the picture of, obviously you guys know it well. And then I do have our link here to go into like our individual classrooms. And we can see obviously the fall, the winter, and the spring. I can, let me see if I can, and it'll actually do it. Hopefully, are you guys seeing that?
Yes.
The core data? Okay, great. So we're not going to really focus on this A and B because we do it all and we did it all in the winter. And guess what? We're doing it all in the spring again. So we're able to really see, this is my class, the individual growth and how they moved up. But our focus is more going to be on the winter part. So all of those parts and really focusing on that CBC is what we're thinking, but we also want, kind of to know what you guys think. All right. Am I back in the presentation? I'm always so
Yes.
worried to flip back. So, um, this was on a whole. So this is kindergarten as a whole, how we did with part A through D in our winter. So other for the letter names, the consonant sounds, the long and short vowel sounds, you can see 31% hit it, they know it, they're ready to move on. We can enrich and extend. The strategic, they're getting there, they're progressing. Great. We'll just keep working with them and hopefully they'll get to that benchmark. The intensive is where we really want to focus and see what can we do to help our students. And as you can see, once we got to the part E portion, with the short vowels and the CVC. Our benchmark was still 30. The strategic was 26, but 44% of our students did not show knowledge of this area. So this is something that we were thinking, wow, okay, this is an issue. We need to see what we can do to help our students.
And I think it's also important to note, Valerie and I were talking, just looking at it again, when the kids were getting the strategic, a lot of my students were falling in that strategic. I'm not sure if you guys felt this too, but because they were missing like one letter sound or one word, and it was making them go from that benchmark in the green down to the
Mhm.
yellow. So we're aware of that, but kind of like what Valerie was saying, I think this is where we noticed again with the Amira data as well. A lot of our kids might be able to segment the words or blend them sometimes, but it's just like such a hit or miss. So I think that's where we're really going to try to focus on that CVC encoding and decoding.
Yeah. So this was just the email that our RISP person sent out, Brittany Rigdon. And for all of you who, like me, didn't know what RISP was, it's the Reading Instructional Support Person. So she has been working with our intensive group EIP students, and she also noticed that encoding and decoding with CVC words is something that we need to continue to work on. So the next two slides are going to show the data from both KA and KB for just those EIP students. At the bottom, she discussed as just a whole school-wide that we were struggling in these areas, but this is where she noticed for our group. So this is the KA data, and I'm going to be sending this presentation to everybody, so you'll be able to have this information, and you can kind of look at it and compare it to maybe what you're seeing in your class. To me, I found that when I looked at mine, it was pretty similar to what I saw on the core data. Um, and then this was KB's data that they got for the core.
So next, Valerie and I kind of put our heads together and figured out what we felt like would be beneficial for our students. And we kind of want to hear what you guys have to say as well. So for those benchmark students, just one way is to enrich them. We said we can really practice on the encoding, which Brittany kind of pointed out too, that even some of our higher level students are still struggling with that. And I know part of Sue and I's key teams we've talked about, we meet with first and second grade as well, and they're kind of noticing it across the board with our UFly too. A lot of our students are struggling when it comes to writing simple sentences that include CVC words. So we kind of felt like this would be a good strategy to help those kids who kind of have parts A through D. And then for our strategic, we said we really need to focus on those long and short vowels. And again, just decoding CVCs with short vowels. And then our intensive kids, it's going to kind of be those EIP students who are still hanging out with their letters and sounds. They're kind of going to need all three of those to bring it on home. But we really wanted to hear what you guys thought when you were looking at your data. How is UFly helping support core phonics? We put our heads together and kind of looked for some resources that we're going to bring to you guys next time. That even Brittany, when she pointed out for nonsense words, we have a few games with the nonsense words because I feel like a lot of my kids will get to something and they'll stretch it out and then they'll look at me like, does that make sense? And I'm like, well, you have to figure it out. Like they can segment it, but then when they're blending it together on their own, they're like, Pip. And I'm like, okay, Pip, what do you think? Or they'll be like dog. And I'm like, you're right. It's like that confidence piece for my students personally. before. I feel like I've been gone for forever, I swear, like
Aw.
for my 2 weeks, I'm like, my students, how are they doing? But when I was there, it was really just that fluency part was really getting them when it came to CBC words. And but yeah, I just wanted to hear how you guys were thinking. What are some weaknesses you're noticing? Um, Again, mine with writing any word, like on our Friday show what you knows with UFly, they can do it if I'm sitting there one on one, be like, okay, dog, type out the sounds you hear. Like I remember Melinda giving us and Sherry the tips and tricks for Amira. And so we were using those in our classroom, but it's just that confidence piece. I feel like
Mhm.
is what I'm lacking. So I kind of wanted to hear what you guys were thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, I mean, I totally agree with everything that you've said and like where you see those strengths and then those weaknesses and where to go from there. Um, I think one thing that I see, like when you were talking about vowels, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not just like long and short vowel sounds, but in isolation, I feel like sometimes the kids get the vowel sounds and they can say what the vowel sound is. If I'm saying the word, then they say
Mm-hmm.
it back. They can identify that. But then when they go to put it together in a word, that's when they lose that, I guess a lot of it's that middle sound. So whether it's
Right.
long or short, or that they are mixing up what the vowel sound is. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in isolation, or like you said, whether they're blending or segmenting, they can do it, but then putting it together, they lose that. So
Right.
I definitely think that that's something
Mhm.
that we need to work on.
Right. And sometimes even I've noticed like in isolation, like if when we used to focus just on word families, they would get it. But when you're putting all vowels together, like when it is the core phonics and it's like zip, zap, like
Mhm.
dog, like just randomly, that's when they start getting like the vowels confused. Like I'll be like, oh
Mhm.
nope, that's an E, what sound is an E make? Um, but yeah, we can definitely, and I know Annie and Marion upload so many great resources
They do,
in
like
our
with our
phonics teams.
phonics.
It's
Yeah.
just taking the time to go through them all and find what's great. So Valerie and I kind of have done that and pulled some resources we've already had too. And I know we're all trying. We're working hard. And UFI, like we've said, it does seem to be working. We just want to make sure we're getting that encoding
It's
and decoding.
working, but like you said, the low, like our
Hmm.
intensive students, I feel like they just get further behind because the U-fly
Mhm.
keeps going, and
Moving.
now we're on
Right.
that sound, and they still are struggling with that. So I do like the U-fly, but I think these striving learners, like
Hmm. Hmm. A
it's
bit too
too much
fast.
for them. They need a slower pace. So
Right.
I don't know how we can.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
hoping that maybe some of that, and I think a lot of it is going to have to be those kids are definitely more small group for them. And
Mhm.
especially this time of year where maybe those kids that have it can do some enrichment on their own, where you're meeting
Hmm.
with those really needed intensive kids that need that intensive work more often, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, as much as possible, and that can be difficult because it is finding the time. It's always finding the time and finding the resources. And I loved what Melinda and Sherry gave us. Like, I've used that several times in my small group and it does help.
I
So,
used it
Right.
today.
our hope, our hope is that it's gonna, like, we'll be able to do the same thing for you guys. Like, you'll leave with the resources and
Hmm.
something to use in your classrooms that
And
can
I will
help.
say, too, going kind of what you were saying, Sherry, I know we've brought that up during our key teams too, Brittany, about like, and it's not even just kindergarten. I feel like first and second grade are noticing that as well. Like it's moving a bit too fast paced. And when I showed second grade some of the stuff that we were doing, and Valerie, I know is in the key team with us too, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, you guys are talking about nasal A? Or when we were
Mm-hmm.
bouncing around, they're like, wait, we're on that too. Um, but she did say, she's like, this year's kind of going to be our, I hate to say like guinea pig year, but they're going to try to brainstorm of how we can slow it down because we were kind of all had the same concerns. Like some of our kids, especially if you have the ESOL cluster, like Marion and I and Helen, it's like, well, hey, these kids are still learning, the letters
Mm-hmm.
in their name right now. And I'm having to talk to them for 30 minutes about nasal A, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever open and close syllable. So
Yeah.
she did say, she's like, this year we're going to just try to stick to the scope and sequence that UFly has given us, and then we'll try to see how we can fit it in to best support like our students. But
Oh,
it's definitely something that I think we've all agreed that it's great in certain aspects, and there's some things that we could work on as a
and we have
school.
to remember, this is really the first year we've used Core. This is the first year we've used UFly, and Amira is still pretty brand new. We just used it last year, and we weren't even sure if we were going to use it this year. So we're still, there is a learning curve for teachers as well, I think, in trying to figure out
Yeah.
best strategies and how to best implement best practices. So
Yeah,
I like
and then
that.
next year we'll have that Wonders curriculum to
Mhm.
fit in and see how that impacts
Excited for
all the
that.
other things too.
Yeah.
Right.
So
It is neat to see that like the Amira and the core is kind of aligning. Like we're seeing the same like discrepancies, I guess, between both, that it's not like, oh, well, this one's telling us this and this one's telling us that we're kind of all as a team seeing similarities. But yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think also somebody touched on it, Allie, maybe it was you, but like that it's also important as you're doing this and we're looking at not just the data, but like what are we going to do about it? Some of the kids that we have that are like in that intensive and the ones that we were saying, could do it. Allie, you were saying like if you guide them through each thing and you're the one saying the sounds or you're the one saying, they can do it. But then when it comes to them doing it by themselves, or now you say the word, you say the sounds, and they're like,
Mhm.
they can't even say the word. I think that it's important that we look at some of those kids and like the why, because like I'm thinking of one particularly at Valerie in
Mhm.
our class, and we just signed to do, some testing and evaluation on her. So like, what are some of the besides strategies that we can do and that you guys can give us? Because I know that you have a lot, but to look at, some of those other things that they might need more than just that there are some other things going on,
Mhm. Mhm.
Right.
with them.
Yeah.
So
And I'm sure a lot of our red students on the core are also our red students on Amira too,
Mhm.
where
right,
those are
yeah.
kind of those
Mhm.
I feel like a lot
yeah.
of the data is showing us the same thing,
Mhm.
and we're really seeing it again and again. So it shows us that, okay, this is where we really do need to focus. So
Right.
did anyone else have any other ideas or questions or?
No, I
I
don't
think
think
that's
yeah, no,
fabulous.
I think
Yeah.
it sounds really good. I'm excited to to see what you guys come up with and the strategies and to meet again and go a little bit further into it.
Well,
I know
thank
we were
you.
Good
saying
job.
that you
Yeah.
guys spoiled us last time with all
No,
the
I
great
know.
resources, trying to find new ones, which when Valerie and I were talking about it yesterday, even we were saying, we're like, it is funny because I just feel like they're so similar in what the students are needing, which is like I said, which is a good thing because
Yeah.
we're seeing that it's kind of across the board the same skill set we need to work on. But I was like, all right, let's get to work. Let's find some
Yeah.
better
yeah,
some
Yeah,
game
better
on.
yeah.
No,
tools.
I think it's great that you all are using that and then kind of springboarding off of that and kind of extending that because I think that's where the need is. I think you're spot on. So
Right.
good job.
Which that is my favorite thing. I love hunting for good resources.
Yeah.
Like that's where
Yeah.
I like to put my time. I know.
Well,
Well, thank you guys for meeting with
thank
us
you
today. I
guys so much
know
for
it's been a
being
long
here.
day.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
absolutely.
And
I
if you
miss
don't
y'all.
mind,
I miss being there.
We miss you. We
we'll
need
meet
to see the
again after
baby.
spring
I
break
know. I know. I'll
sometime. So.
send y'all
Yes,
pictures
more
and videos.
pictures, more pictures, more
Oh my
video.
gosh.
I haven't
Sorry,
heard him. I
ASP
keep like
is so
listening.
loud.
I know. I was
Yes,
gonna
close
tell
that door.
Allie to take her laptop in and show us
Yeah.
the sleeping baby, but with all
I
the
know.
Baby
noise, it will wake him
sleeping.
up.
Yeah, we
So
would
don't do
totally
I
that.
wake
know.
him up.
I know. No, I'll send y'all pictures. I
Aw.
literally keep doing this. I'm like, do I hear him? I mean, all you moms
Aw.
probably know. It's like I'll be
Yeah.
in the shower. I'm like, he's crying, and then I'll
Yeah,
run out
yeah,
and he's sound
yeah.
asleep.
Yeah.
There's no good time for a shower. So,
Yeah. No. I know.
well,
Well,
thanks
thanks,
again,
guys.
everybody.
Yes.
We appreciate
Yeah.
it. Have a good rest of your day.
You
Thanks.
too.
Be sure to
Bye.
get a donut.
Oh, yeah, come get a donut.